Arthur, and this is my wife Teresa, and this is what Seventh-day Adventists need to know about Catholicism. Do Catholics have the right to change the Sabbath to Sunday? And this second episode is called Succession in Order of Melchizedek. So to recap what we did last time, we spoke about how the system that the Seventh-day Adventists have is similar to that of the Catholics in that they have a hierarchy that starts with the Bible, then Ellen White interpreting the Bible, and then it gets to the parishioners down.
Chain of command.
The chain of command,
yeah.
Right. Like the story that I was telling about the captain that went to war. And Catholics have the same thing with the magisterium. The magisterium interprets the Bible, and it goes out through the many hundreds of them to the parishioners. So that's the recap of the first one. This one is about the fact that there is a hierarchy, and that it's very, very old, and that we see and hear mostly about the power and the seat of Moses. That Moses was given the authority to rule over all of the Israelites coming out of Egypt. We look at the things that he did. You notice God may have given him the power, but he gave the power to Moses to wield up against Pharaoh. He didn't just do it without Moses. He said, Moses, go put your rod out there. And he put it out there, and it turned to a snake. Yeah. Now go touch the water of the river, and it turned to blood. He always has Moses going to do something that they see. Think about what that would look like. You've got all the people watching him, and he would do things, and he took the dust of the ground, threw it up in the air, and it turned into, gnats of some kind. Because he's obviously wanting Moses to be seen as an authority figure.
Yeah.
He didn't have everybody in camp do it. He had Moses do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that we're exploring on this time do they, Moses and Aaron were very, very powerful, but did they have the authority to change a commandment of God? And I'm just going to throw this part out. Sure. We didn't even discuss this before, but I thought this would, Adventists talk about the Ten Commandments as being so important. The Ten Commandments. Well, Moses, when he came down and he saw the people breaking the Ten Commandments, when they were worshiping the golden calf, he smashed it right in front of him. He took what God had written with his own finger, and the greatest relic of all time, and he smashed it and broke it to pieces. And it's interesting, God was not upset with that. God did not chastise him for that.
Right.
When God did chastise him, and he wasn't allowed into the promised land, it was over him striking the rock twice. It was disobedience.
Yes.
And so Moses was so close to God. He had such power that he could break all 10 commandments of God. You know what I mean?
That's funny.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
He wasn't actually. He was breaking the stones that they were on.
Yeah, broke all 10 commandments at once.
Yeah, that's right. So, Moses and Aaron were extremely important. And Moses was a priest as well as a leader. And God put him in charge of establishing the Levitical priesthood. And so if you look, there's all kinds of things that happened to people who challenged Moses' authority. Mm-hmm. And in number 16, the ground opened up and swallowed up. What was the names?
Dathan
and
Abiram.
Abiram. Okay, so they were
Yeah.
swallowed up because they challenged his authority. And then Moses' sister Miriam,
Right.
remember that she got leprosy because she and Aaron challenged. I mean, they said, "Hey, wait a minute. God talks through us too." Well, she ended up with leprosy because she challenged Moses' authority. And let's see.
I guess they found out the difference between talking through them and talking to them.
Yeah.
Big difference.
But Moses had an authority that was even greater than any of those we've spoken about.
Mm-hmm. When the Israelites started to whine and complain, and they were complaining because they wanted to be able to get rid of their lousy husbands or their lousy wives, and
Well, it was
What-
men wanting to get rid of.
right,
the women
whoever.
could
Well, I'm just
divorce.
saying. Can you imagine millions of people complaining?
Yeah.
How many complaints could there possibly be with 2 or 3 million people in one camp?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. So Jesus says when he was here talking about Moses' authority, when he was talking in Matthew 19, he spoke about Moses having actually decided to let them get a divorce. And he said it
Right.
wasn't this way from the beginning. And so Moses changed one of God's laws.
Right.
I mean, about marriage. Moses came in and gave him the ability to get a divorce.
Mhm.
That was not how God had set it up. So that's incredible authority.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to read Matthew 23 that speaks about the seat of Moses. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So you must be careful to do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them."
Well, I think this establishes that Moses' authority was passed down. That the person that sat on Moses' seat
Right.
was the one that had Moses' authority. And notice, these were bad people.
Yeah.
The Lord didn't
They
say,
took
"Oh,
advantage
excuse me,
of
don't
it,
talk
yeah.
ugly about them. They're perfect." You know, no, he said, absolutely, they're horrible. But what did he not take away? He didn't take away their authority.
Didn't take away the seat.
Yeah, he didn't take away the seat, and he
Right.
didn't take away their authority. What he said was, "You must be careful to do everything they tell you,
Right.
even though they're adding things to it. They're binding up all this
So,
stuff."
so
that
what
you
is that
shouldn't
saying in modern English would be, whatever they tell you, as long if you are obedient to them, being obedient to them is more important. That just blows the mind of modern people.
have. Yeah,
That
that's
doesn't.
right.
That
Even though they're bad,
it's like we're kind of not. I
They're
know,
hypocrites.
we're not wired that way now.
they're
It's
whitewashed.
like, well, they're not
tombs.
perfect, therefore we're not going to follow them. We're going to go over here. And then when they're not perfect, we're going to go over here.
Yeah, yeah.
Then he's like, no. There's still a seat of Moses.
That's right. They're in the seat of Moses. Therefore, you have to obey them. Just don't be like them.
Yeah, just
He
because
says
they're
just-
hypocrites
yeah,
doesn't
just
mean
don't
what
be
they're
hypocrites
saying.
like they are.
So,
And now we take and just want to show a little bit of this, the succession before we go into the New Testament.
Right.
We want to at least point out that these men of God, a lot of them carried on their succession by laying hands on who were going to come next and fulfill their role and fulfill their office, either their priestly office or their
you'll remember the story of Moses speaking to God saying, I can't do all this. There's
Right.
too much going on. And so he allowed Moses to break up groups of people, and then he put people over the heads of them who had to answer to him. It was still Moses down. It was still a hierarchy starting at the seat of Moses down, and they all would come and answer to Moses.
And so then we have Moses ordaining Joshua. Now that was not their son, but the Levitical priesthood was father to son. The high priest also. So the Aaronic, or however you say it, priesthood. I mean, they were the priests, and their sons would come in and take their position after the high priest would die or the priest would die. So that was biological, and so was the Levitical priesthood. The Levites came in, and it was their sons, and so that was very, very biological. And then when King David, King Saul was not the father of King David, but after King David was established, God established the biological monarchy of King David.
Right.
And so from then on, it was biological. But it is interesting that King David refused to even touch or hurt the hem of Saul's garments, the predecessor, when he knew he had gone bad. He realized he was a very, very bad king, and that he was going to end up getting it. But King David was very, very honorable, and gave that extreme honor to King Saul until God took him in death.
That's right.
And then we have
Elijah and Elisha.
Elijah to Elisha. And so, again, that wasn't biological, but it was, that shows that even the office of a prophet occasionally would have a successor.
Right. Which is interesting because you hear throughout the Bible when God speaks, when Christ speaks, and others speak of Christ, they talk about the Son of David. It was so important that the lineage of David is forever, that even Christ himself, that's one of his names, is the Son of David. There's that hierarchy still going. So King David foretells the successors to the apostles, essentially.
Well, and then we move over into the New Covenant, and there's actually people, unless you read Hebrews, you're not going to really hear much of it from the other books of the New Testament. But Jesus established a new, and we think that the Levitical and all the leadership in the Old Testament had power. Had power to change God's laws, had power to be, swallowed up if you challenged it. Well, there was a major, it was just a much, much better and even more powerful new covenant, because it was the order of Melchizedek.
Yep.
And Jesus was in the line of, and people don't realize he didn't just start then.
Yeah, the order of Melchizedek is so old. It goes well beyond King David.
Oh yeah, it was.
And that's a title also that's carried on through up into.
Well, Melchizedek was the king of Salem, and at the time of Abraham, and it says he was the priest of the Most High God. So they knew Jerusalem, which was before that was called Salem.
Right.
Was the king? He was the priest king, Melchizedek, and the Bible says that he was ancient. That at the time of Abraham, they said that his lineage wasn't even known. It goes back so far. They said he didn't have a mother or a father. In other words, he was seen to have been extremely old. So this order of Melchizedek it goes back till pre-flood.
Right.
And so.
But the most important and the most interesting part of that is that there is a hierarchy and a priesthood and apostleship that runs all the way back, and you can just track it forward all through the Old and into the New Testament. That there is a hierarchy, there is a ranking, if you will, of authority and the passing down of things, as you can see most profoundly in Moses.
Yeah.
He's constantly making laws and rules and distinctions and rulings for all the people in Israel.
Yeah. Well, this order of Melchizedek was not biological, and Christ came into it. It was well established by the time Jesus came into it, and because it's the order. Whenever you hear that phrase, it's the Order of Malta, it's the Order of
Sure.
Even the Templars, the Freemasons have used it, and it means it's a successive people. In other words, it's supposed to be forever passed down to the next leader, and you anoint and you commission the next leader.
Right, place hands upon and all of that. Moses did all of that.
Okay,
So.
and the Catholic bishops believe that they are in the order of Melchizedek because Christ started the New Covenant order of Melchizedek, and then he commissioned his apostles through anointing, and that the apostles then appoint their successors. And so this is what the Catholic Church believes gives them the authority. In other words, when the Seventh-day Adventists listened to Ellen White, the nature of her authority was derived through her visions and the miracles that they believe accompany those visions. Very often you'll hear of the story of Ellen White. Let me use this hand. Ellen White lifting up the Bible, the 18.5-pound Bible, it depends on which story you're listening to. Some people put it at minutes, and then some people put it at hours. But anyway, the fact is, these miracles, this is what they use to point out that she is in the chain of command for Adventists, that she is given the authority to interpret for the Adventists what the Bible means. She is the prophet because of that derives back from this idea of her having visions straight from God. That's her authority. Where the Catholic Church is not mystical like that. They say that they come from the order of Melchizedek, which has been seen, which you can trace, which every single person afterwards, it's very visible.
Right.
And that's how they derive their authority, is from that lineage, the order of Melchizedek. Now, Ellen White did not have any successors. The authority stopped with her. And so that's something that's quite different about Catholicism and Adventism.
Yeah, so really that's about it for this particular one. Thank you for listening, and there is a third and maybe fourth part. We'll have to see how long it gets for this next segment. And anyway, thank you very much for listening, and come back and listen to the rest of it. It's very, very interesting, and we will try to finish it up next time. Thank you very much. God bless you.